Hello everyone. Welcome to session 8 of Dimension Computer in this year. We have a session that is absolutely crammed with amazing presentations. We have 9 presentations in total, some of which are full papers, some are short papers, and we have 1 invited paper. These papers and presentations are very varied in the topics that they address, but they all come together under the topics, under the realms of accessibility and ethics. And to give us space to discuss and talk about these, I'm happy to announce the first paper, which has won a Best Paper Award, and will be presented by Sabrina Bocha from TU Wien, and she will tell us, where would you even start?
Inequality and historically developed power structures have consequences on our daily life, practices of computer science, and human-computer interaction. In our work as researchers and practitioners, we constantly encounter such questions around gender. Answering them means not just attending to our societal responsibility, but also doing better work. In our paper, we present a close reading of literature discussing gender sensitivity in HCI, to provide practical guidance in the form of recommendations for the design, proposal, conduct, and presentation of research and practice. Our analysis provides a starting point to explore questions and issues around gender and its relation to HCI for students, researchers, and practitioners. We encourage you to further reflect with us on how to better serve marginalized populations. You can find details on the literature in the paper. In this video, let's look at the recommendations we have prepared. During the design of research protocols, unintended ambiguity can lead to exclusions. We recommend that researchers discuss and define early on how they understand gender in the scope of their project, that they probe methods for accessibility and sensitivity, and that they assess sometimes necessary exclusions upfront. Additionally, we suggest to plan for individual and collective reflection on each project member's positionality within the project's context. When responding to a grant call, researchers can take the opportunity to extend the sometimes restrictive expectations of funding organizations. Gender-sensitive research does not always have to be about women. It could also focus on non-binary, trans, or intersex folks issues, or look at specific topics of toxic masculinity. Writing a proposal that broadens the funding body's horizon of gender-sensitive research can also be understood as a teaching opportunity towards the body's board members. When working with people, be they participants or our co-workers, it is vital to treat each other with respect so everyone can participate, voice their ideas, and contribute without fear of negative consequences. Thus, we recommend to follow participants' choices regarding, for example, names, descriptions, and pronouns. And we advise to attend to different needs and preferences, for example in regard to care responsibilities. Further, we suggest to seek critical feedback from participants and/or topical experts and actively look for what may be missing in a given project. Finally, gender also matters in the presentation of our work, in the form of, for example, an explanatory video, a conference paper, or a thesis. One thing most HCI professionals will know is that context matters, and it does so not only for usage of an artifact, but also beyond. Discussing datasets and their limitations can be used to reflect on and broaden representation and to make visible the often unmarked norms that permeate our work. Finally, when presenting findings, it is important to use inclusive and precise language to avoid perpetuating exclusionary stereotypes, and to properly represent participants by using their self-descriptions and correct pronouns. Participants can also give valuable feedback in regard to appropriate language about themselves. To appropriately stimulate future work, detailing and explaining choices in research and design is paramount. Why, if at all, was gender included as a parameter, and how was it operationalized? Which datasets were used, and why? What are their limitations? How is the knowledge localized? What is our positionality towards a research area, and how do positionality and research interact with each other? As I said, further details on our work can be found in the paper. We're looking forward to your questions and comments. Oh, And one last thing before we're done. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you very much for this thoughtful paper and presentation. For those of you listening, please ask your questions in the live chat, and I will pass them on to the presenters. While we're waiting for those questions, I would make a start. So you have given really useful starting points there. What would you say to people who say they're scared to get it wrong, or they're scared to make it start?
I'd say it's important to try and to show that you tried. And the best chance to learn something is to try and make mistakes. So I'd argue for room for failure, to be honest.
Thank you. And you also said context matters, and you've given some examples of that. What would you say would be a good way to talk to your co-workers, your co-researchers, your participants, in a way learning about their context without putting the effort on them? Do you have any advice on how you would do that, or how that could be done?
Can you rephrase the question?
Sorry, that was a bit mean. So you're asking your, if I understood correctly, it's about learning from your participants, right? And learning from your co-workers and your co-researchers, what they want and what they need. But that needs, puts a lot of pressure on them to explain themselves if not done right. So do you have any hints or tips how it can be done sensitively?
That is a great question. I don't have a lot of experience in that area. Kata, maybe you can add something here?
I can address that a bit. I think to some extent, yes, that would involve effort also from participants, but it is on us to create the space where that can happen, and the space where we can attend to that. Like in a lot of research, we are very focused on the questions that researchers have, on what they want to know, but little on like what participants want to tell, and like giving freedom there, and like just attending to having more freedom in what participants can tell and want to communicate about themselves, and not just probing what is interesting, but also letting go if participants don't want to tell things about themselves, and just like not being driven by kind of like gathering a lot of data, but also attending to where there is no info to get, and not probing and like creating kind of social pressure to do so.
Excellent, thank you very much. We don't yet have any questions on YouTube, but the chat is still open for people. You know, if you have this burning question that comes up after the session or after you've read the paper, you can still ask the questions there. Or I think there's also a Discord server for people to get in touch. And of course, they can get in touch with the authors. Right, having said that, a question is just coming up or coming in. And it seems to be a long one. So the question is, I'll try to summarize it. It's about having categories like age and gender on questionnaires, because this is how it's done. And the question by Julian is, what do you think about this practice? Should we drop these questions if the data of age and gender is not our research focus?
The thing is that it depends on what you're looking for, I guess, and also how your questions are phrased. One of the papers that we looked at, for example, deals with sexual health related language, and they checked for the age of the participants, more or less. But they didn't group them in the usual buckets of 10-year age spans, but rather looked at the context of the life of the participants to group it according to life experience. So the information can give important insights. The question is, how do you ask and why do you ask? Because if you just ask because everybody has done it before and we just do it, that's not that great of a motivation for a question, I guess.
If I may add to that. Is that okay?
Quick, short one.
I can do it super quick. So the question is, what does gender mean to you and why do you want to know this? If you're clear on that, you know how you can ask it and why. One reason can simply be in non-gender associated research to show that your sample is not biased towards like a particular gender or like, you know, demographic group. But that involves also like considering, I mean, most participants, especially in German environments, are white. So what does that mean? Or even students, like we probably have over-researched student populations so much now that we don't know a lot about other populations. And for that reason, it is important to like reflect on the limitations from the sample. And that can be, but that is a question that is more like a soft question. It's not necessary to provide your gender, but it's like good to have an indication of like where your limits are of your population sample.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next paper for now, which will be a short paper presented by Laura Stoiko from the University der Bundeswehr München, and she will tell us about design guidelines.
Hi, I am Laura Stoiko from the Universität der Bundeswehr München, and I will present you the key idea and solution of the paper Design Guidelines for Microinformation Radiators to Increase Senior Safety in Urban Space. Senior citizens face challenges during activities in urban space, like uneven grounds or non-visible signs. To help and motivate them pursuing outdoor activities, we propose a network of micro and macro information radiators to increase their feeling of safety. Concerning this topic, we collaborate and develop smart urban objects such as information radiators with various partners in the research project Urban Life Plus. Microinformation radiators are small devices that can be flexibly integrated into many objects in urban space, for example lampposts or park benches. Connecting several smart urban objects enables guidance by navigation and support of activities over a wide area, as you can see here in this figure. The design guidelines are categorized into input and output and are based on a literature analysis as well as on our own experiences and evaluations within the scope of Urban Life Plus. Regarding input, we discovered these main aspects and channels. One option for implicit interaction is detecting the senior by Bluetooth signal. Therefore, the Bluetooth transmitter needs to be easy to use, lightweight, as inconspicuous as possible, and with low configuration effort. Other options are direct interactions via buttons, touch, gestures, or speech. Environmental information like humidity can be used to predict rain. Thereby, the radiator can inform the senior and navigate the fastest way home. Finally, other smart urban objects can send information about the senior's planned activity to a radiator and thus enable support for their whole outdoor stay. The output of microinformation radiators can either be visual, auditory, or tactile. The small LED display can show symbols, arrows, or flashing light signals. Therefore, we identified these recommendations, consider to use clear contrasts, use only a maximum of 4 different colors, and consider associations to color and perception disorders. Also, pictographs and symbols should be chosen carefully. Make sure associations are clear and that they are uniform, culture-independent, and internationally readable. Melodies, tones, or spoken text are potential auditory output. Based on literature and on a project evaluation, we identified that auditory interactions as output are suitable, while voice commands as input still struggle with recognition. The tactile output via vibrations has the advantage that it is very subtle. Anyway, during our work with seniors and experts, we experienced that it is important to consider the vibration's intensity and whether an information can be conveyed meaningfully. We plan to conduct an evaluation to identify whether and which visual clues for navigation support seniors during outdoor activities.
Thank you so much. What an interesting concept. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I would like to ask you to expand a bit more on what you think the next steps for this work are, and especially how you think about involving potential users of the work.
Thank you for the question. Well, we planned some evaluations with seniors this year. Unfortunately, due to Corona, it was not possible so far. But we had the chance to do some evaluations last week, and we plan to do some more at the end of September to identify which clues are helpful for seniors on those microinformation radiators.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What do you think makes these micro-information radiators particularly useful for seniors? And/or why did you choose this group?
The seniors are, as I explained in the beginning, they tend to stay more at home, and they avoid to go outside because they don't want to go alone or they feel insecure. And that's why I think those microinformation radiators are a good way to put information on a lot of spaces in the urban space, and so to show and help them to feel more safe outside if they see something they know, and get some information more about the area.
So what type of activities, for example, do you imagine in these to happen? What are the use cases that you have envisioned so far? And are there plans to test them?
Yes, that's what actually happened last week. We planned to do some kind of activity support. So, for example, also navigational support to show them the right way. Or, for example, if they need a place to rest, so they can book a seating place in the park or something like this. So they are sure there's a place I can rest in case I need to take a breath. Something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We have a question from Eva in the chat, where she asked about the question of how do you establish, or how do you let people know which information is for them and not for other people around them, or something like this?
Yes, this is an interesting point, and we try to personalize the information as far as possible. So, for example, we decided to test colors. For example, we let people choose their personalized color, and the information displayed on the information radiator is then the similar color. So that's one way we try to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. We further have a suggestion from Christian about the idea to combine the information with things they wear or they carry around with them. Is there anything you have planned?
The idea is here for example, they are wearing some kind of, I don't know, a necklace or a tool with them, or is it something they actually wear on like clothes on their body?
It's clothes or the tools they have, like for example a walking stick.
Yes, so for example, I can imagine that, for example, tactile output is one option where this is a good idea, because you can send them some vibrations, for example, on their phone if they come to a dangerous situation or intersection, for example.
Brilliant, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next paper, we have another short paper from Mandy Gorham from Karlsruhe Institute for Technology, who will tell us about a learning assistant.
Mein Name ist Meni Goram, ich bin wissenschaftliche Mitarbeiterin und Doktorandin am Karlsruher Institut für Technologie. Während meiner Zeit an der Fernuniversität in Hagen ist der im Beitrag beschriebene Softwareassistent entstanden, den ich kurz vorstellen werde. An der Fernuniversität wurde im Rahmen eines interdisziplinären Forschungsprojektes die Community App Meindorf 55+ entwickelt. Die App dient der Stärkung der Partizipation und Teilhabe von Seniorinnen am gesellschaftlichen Leben sowie dem sozialen Austausch, speziell im ländlichen Raum. Bei der Nutzung der App durch die Seniorinnen wurden Schwierigkeiten bei der Erstellung von Beiträgen identifiziert. Die Seniorinnen erstellen überwiegend kurze, inhaltsarme Texte mit fehlenden Informationen. Die fehlenden Angaben führen dazu, dass Leserinnen des Beitrags sich nicht angesprochen fühlen und zudem führt die mangelnde Qualität dazu, dass das Empfehlungssystem der App, das auf Solar basiert, nicht richtig funktioniert. Die Seniorinnen sollen daher bei der Erstellung von Beiträgen unterstützt werden. Dabei ergeben sich die Fragen, wie können die Nutzenden bzw. Seniorinnen während des Schreibens von Beiträgen für die Community App Meindorf 55+ durch ein Softwarewerkzeug unterstützt werden und wie kann das Softwarewerkzeug auf einen veränderten Sprachgebrauch reagieren und sich inhaltlich an neue Themen anpassen. Die Anforderungen an das Unterstützungswerkzeug wurden durch einen Workshop mit der Fokusgruppe erarbeitet. An diesem haben 8 Personen teilgenommen, darunter Vertreterinnen und Vertreter der Nutzergruppe, also den Seniorinnen, einer Gemeindepädagogin und den App-Verantwortlichen. Im Workshop wurden verschiedene Unterstützungsmöglichkeiten durch Chatbots und Sprachassistenten vorgestellt. Daraufhin haben die Teilnehmerinnen Vorschläge für das Unterstützungswerkzeug erarbeitet. Die Ergebnisse des Workshops waren, dass ein Werkzeug zur inhaltlichen Unterstützung bei Beitragserstellung bereitgestellt werden soll. Es soll kein Chatbot oder Chatbot-ähnliches Werkzeug sein. Es sollen also keine vorgefertigten Dialoge vorhanden sein, die durchlaufen werden müssen. Es sollen auch keine persönlichen Daten genutzt werden, um das Werkzeug zu verwenden, und es sollen keine direkte Änderung im Beitragstext stattfinden. Aus den Anforderungen ist ein Softwareassistent entstanden, der flexibel in die Meindorf 55+ App integriert werden kann. Der Softwareassistent ermittelt fehlende Informationen und Angaben in den Texten der Seniorinnen, während diese den Text schreiben. Die Seniorinnen werden auf wichtige fehlende Angaben unmittelbar hingewiesen, so dass die Angaben vor dem Speichern ergänzt werden können. Hierfür kommen maschinelle Lernverfahren und Verfahren der natürlichen Sprachverarbeitung zum Einsatz. Die maschinellen Lernverfahren werden auch dazu verwendet, um ein mitlernendes System zur Verfügung zu stellen, das dann unmittelbar durch neue Informationen, neue Einträge den eigenen Datenkorpus erweitert und somit auch sich an neue Texte und Informationen anpasst. Einige weitere Details können Sie im Beitrag nachlesen. Abschließend möchte ich Ihnen noch eine Abbildung zeigen, die exemplarisch die Rückmeldung des Softwareassistenten zum aktuellen Text wiedergibt. Im Feld Titel und Beschreibung ist der Eingabetext, der repräsentativ für einen Beitrag der Meindorf 55+ App ist. Dabei wird auf wichtige, noch fehlende Angaben im Text hingewiesen. Die Ausgabe erfolgt im unteren Bereich über das Feld Fragenassistent. Das war eine kurze Vorstellung des Softwareassistenten. Für Fragen stehe ich Ihnen gerne zur Verfügung.
Vielen Dank. Wenn Sie Fragen auf Englisch haben, stellen Sie die gerne auf Englisch und ich werde sie dann übersetzen. Wir werden die Fragestellung kurz auf Deutsch machen für dieses Paper. Ein spannendes Projekt. Auch hier die Frage, was sind die nächsten Schritte?
Also was in dem Paper ja noch etwas wenig vorhanden war, ist die Evaluation. Die war jetzt erstmal rein technisch auf Basis vorhandener Einträge, die typisch waren vom Nutzerverhalten, was jetzt eingegeben worden ist, auf das man genau abzielen wollte. Und empfehlen würde jetzt erstmal noch eine Evaluation mit der Nutzergruppe. Das hat sich ein bisschen verschoben im Projekt und wurde dann dieses Jahr leider auch oder konnte jetzt bisher nicht durchgeführt werden, weil wir da in App-Cafés vor Ort mit den Nutzerinnen das Ganze ausprobieren und evaluieren würde. Und das hat sich jetzt alles ein bisschen nach hinten geschoben. Also das wäre einer der nächsten Schritte, um dann erstmal zu schauen, was müsste jetzt noch verbessert werden. Technologisch kann man dann noch ein bisschen Verbesserungen durchführen. Das ist auch zwischenzeitlich nochmal mit passiert. Die Datenbank kann erweitert werden und was halt die Ergebnisse aus der Evaluation mit den Nutzern, die dann vor Ort sind, die das dann direkt einsetzen sollen, herauskommt, müsste dann nochmal mit eingearbeitet werden.
Dankeschön. Ich schaue mal kurz, ob schon Fragen da sind, noch nicht. inwieweit lernt oder inwieweit ist denn dieser Assistent individualisiert? Also ist es auf den Benutzer bezogen oder ist es generell, lernt er den Art des Posts sozusagen zu verbessern?
Aktuell ist das System so ausgelegt, dass es sich auf inhaltliche Änderungen anpasst und die Nutzerinformationen erstmal außen vor lässt. Das wäre dann eine Weiterentwicklungsmöglichkeit, wenn das dann gewünscht ist. Die Seniorinnen sind da sehr sensibel, was den Datenschutz anbelangt. Die wollen eigentlich keine Daten automatisch in solchen Prozessen oder Empfehlungen mit drin haben. Da könnte man aber schauen, was könnte eine Personalisierung an zusätzlicher Verbesserung bringen und bis zu welchem Punkt würde das dann auch akzeptiert werden. Dafür müsste man natürlich so den Kontext noch mit erfassen. Das ist das, was technologisch dann parallel jetzt schon mit passiert. Also wie kann man das weiterentwickeln für personalisierte Systeme, den Kontext zu berücksichtigen, auch die persönlichen Präferenzen, was den Datenschutz anbelangt. Was möchte ich an Daten preisgeben? Was würde ich dafür eintauschen, meine Daten preiszugeben? Also wie kann man das systemisch abbilden? Das ist momentan der Punkt. Und das Mitlernen bezieht sich eben jetzt erstmal nur auf die inhaltlichen Informationen. Das heißt, so der Sprachgebrauch oder die Inhalte, die generell in der Anwendung verwendet werden, auf die würde reagiert werden, auf die würde geschaut werden. Also es ist sehr zugeschnitten auf diese Community. Und wenn sich jetzt innerhalb der Community eben der Sprachgebrauch ändert oder die inhaltlichen Informationen, die dann im System gespeichert werden, würde das System dann darauf reagieren können und dann zunehmend dann diese Änderungen mit übernehmen und auch weitere Empfehlungen oder Informationen, die dann gegebenenfalls fehlen, mit ergänzen oder mit zur Verfügung stellen, sodass man dann das System an sich nicht angepasst werden muss, sondern über den Datenkorpus, der dann entsteht, nach und nach eine Anpassung der inhaltlichen Bestandteile stattfindet.
Vielen Dank. Noch eine letzte Frage aus dem Chat von Julian. Spielen altersbedingte Einschränkungen eine Rolle im Systementwurf?
Altersbeschränkt von der Bedienung her oder von den kognitiven Fähigkeiten?
Bezüglich Hörvermögen steht hier noch.
Momentan ist es textbasiert, also auf einer textbasierten Ausgabe. Man könnte dann natürlich eine Sprachausgabe machen oder bei einer textuellen Ausgabe bleiben. Das ist vom technischen Ansatz sehr unabhängig. Von daher wäre das dann flexibel. Je nachdem, wie das dann in die Meindorf 55 Plus App integriert wird, kann man das mit einer Sprachausgabe, vielleicht auch mit einer Spracheingabe machen oder eben textuell. Also da ist das System an sich flexibel.
Wunderbar. Vielen Dank für den spannenden Vortrag. Als nächstes haben wir dann switching back to English. Next we have another short paper presented by Gabriela Tullius from the Hochschule Reutlingen, where she'll introduce PregReg.
Due to decreased mobility or families living apart, older adults are especially vulnerable to the issue of social isolation. With PregReg, we propose a cooking recipe exchange application to make older adults feel precious and valued. Our development follows the human-centered design process. From a general point of view, the user's goal is to receive appreciation. Following a needs-based approach, we use the categories connecting with people, expressing oneself and meeting a challenge as a base to promote positive experience. We identified 4 types of definition of ages, of which we used the sociological and calendrical perspective with a focus on older adults who have retired, live apart from their children, and are over 60 years old. As we deal with older adults, we analyzed older cookbooks from the 1930s till the 1960s and compared them to up-to-date recipe documentations. It was remarkable that in older recipes, illustrations were hardly found, but kitchen techniques, historical information, or tips for the household were included. For designing our system, we took the 10 factors of facilitators of older adults' adoption of technology of flea and cuffling and the recommendations for dealing with visual, auditory, tactile, and cognitive limitations by Dervishi and Hutter into consideration. To validate the usage scenario, we performed 2 workshops with 4 persons. They could use a fully clickable mockup, discuss the idea, and give us feedback. Corresponding to the overall aim of this work, the purpose of the evaluation was to find out technology readiness and UX aspects like the pragmatic and hedonic quality. For this, we used the user experience questionnaire by Hindex and the technology commitment by Naya. We used technology acceptance and technology competence as indicators. The study was conducted with 5 persons. 2 females remain between 61 and 77. Technology acceptance is measured on a scale from 1, not at all, to 5, absolutely. Most subjects had a positive opinion towards using new technology. The items of scale technology competence are opposite to technology acceptance. Hence, most of the subjects felt less competent using new technology. In spite of accepting new technology, competence seems to be a big issue. The overall attractiveness is rated above average. Subjects found it easy and understandable to use. However, from a hedonic perspective, the novelty was rather poor and well below average. This result needs more investigations. For example, how can we cope with anxiety and technology competence versus expectations of innovative user interfaces? Our research is still ongoing, and we are aware that the results are based on a small sample and not over a long time span, and therefore have to be interpreted with caution. What is still open is the challenge of novelty user interfaces versus competence and researching into effects that could arise of being helpful, as this is inherent to the study itself. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for questions on YouTube, I would like to start with the question on what made you think about recipes as a starting point?
Thank you. Well, recipes are something we all have in our everyday lives, and it's something that's really valuable and that's really worth sharing. And often we see families living apart, and you eat something and you really like the food, staying at your grandparents or godmothers or wherever, and but you don't know how to cook it at home. And so this is something as one reason why we use that, because it makes you feel precious. And the other reason is it's really worth saving that recipe over family traditions, etc. It's international, so it's independent from cultures.
Thank you. And how did you come up with the first designs you presented your participants in the workshops?
Yeah. Well, we first came up with the idea of the recipes, then we studied like older recipes versus new recipe documentation, what could be done. And then we had a 2-day workshop where on the first day we went shopping with older adults from a senior resident home to get like confidence, etc. And on the second day we proposed them on a mock-up, on a tablet mock-up, the idea. We try to keep it very, very simple, just like exchanging recipes and to get to know what they really would like. And on a second workshop, we did another iteration on designing icons, etc. Because on the first workshop, we identified that not all icons would be understood by all participants. Yeah. And also, the first workshop was the idea that they gave us feedback on the scenario itself, and they really liked the idea of sharing recipes, so that was a good start there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. We have a question on YouTube as well, from Julian, who asked, is he understanding correctly that this software fulfills a similar purpose to a social network? Is it a recipe database, or is it about strangers finding connections?
No, it's not about strangers finding connections. It's about relatives or friends. Yeah, these connections. So it's more like a social network, but with a focus on social. So not like Facebook with many friends who are not friends. With the idea to really keep it simple. Also, as we heard before, like from issues like data privacy, etc. So it builds up a database of recipes from maybe like family traditions or others, but on that level from first start. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to extend it to a large community, because then you have things like Chef Koch and others, which are not that simple anymore to be used by older adults to share these recipes. Yeah, because you want to have comments, etc. as well. Yeah.
I think that kind of answers the question by Tom, who asks if users outside of this age range welcome within this network.
Yeah.
I think you discussed the pros and cons of that.
Yeah. That's the idea. What is still missing is like the younger side, because so far we only focused on the older adults. We didn't focus on the younger ones. So that is, they kind of use the same user interface, which is not appropriate. So this is something we are working on right now. So maybe combine it with some novelty approach.
That is great. Thank you very much for your interesting project.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on, we have another short paper from Bernhard Wilhelm from Hochschule Darmstadt, who will tell us about a visual help.
Guten Tag, mein Name ist Bernhard Wilhelm und in diesem Video stelle ich Ihnen meinen Beitrag zum Mensch und Computer 2020 vor. Bei diesem Beitrag handelt es sich um eine Pilotuntersuchung einer visuellen Hörhilfe zur Unterstützung des räumlichen Hörens. Aber entpacken wir diesen umfangreichen Titel Stück für Stück und beginnen mit dem räumlichen Hören. Die Fähigkeit, räumlich zu hören, erlaubt es, Geräuschen eine Richtung und Entfernung relativ zu sich selbst zuzuordnen. Verfügt ein Mensch nicht oder nicht mehr über diese Fähigkeit, bedeutet das für sie oder ihn weitreichende Einschränkungen im Alltag. Das reicht von Herausforderungen bei der Orientierung in Gruppengesprächen bis hin zum Ausbleiben einer wichtigen Informationsquelle in Gefahrensituationen, wie beispielsweise im Straßenverkehr. Um dem entgegenzuwirken und Betroffene dabei zu unterstützen, ihre Selbstständigkeit und Sicherheit auszubauen, haben Gebelein und Rapp eine Hörhilfe entwickelt, welche die Richtung von Geräuschen visualisiert. Hier sehen Sie einen Prototypen dieser Hörhilfe, so wie er in meinem Beitrag zum Einsatz kam. Dieser Prototyp verwendet mehrere ringförmig angeordnete Mikrofone, um die Richtung von Geräuschen in 2 Dimensionen zu bestimmen, und stellt seine Ergebnisse auf dem virtuellen Zifferblatt zur Linken dar. Im Rahmen meines Beitrags habe ich mich mit dem Entwurf eines Experiments befasst, welches eine Evaluation der Effektivität jener Hörhilfe ermöglicht. Effektivität bedeutet hier das Ausmaß, in welchem die Hörhilfe das Lokalisieren von Geräuschquellen unterstützt. Um objektive Aussagen über die Effektivität der Hörhilfe zu ermöglichen, bietet der Versuchsaufbau primär die Möglichkeit, das räumliche Hörvermögen der Testperson zu quantifizieren, sodass dieses mit sowie ohne Unterstützung der Hörhilfe gegenübergestellt werden kann. Zu diesem Zweck werden, zunächst ohne und anschließend mit Unterstützung der Hörhilfe, einer Testperson Geräusche aus unterschiedlichen Richtungen vorgespielt, woraufhin diese die Position der Geräuschquellen lokalisieren soll. So ist es möglich, das räumliche Hörvermögen zu quantifizieren und den Einfluss der Hörhilfe darauf zu untersuchen. Der Versuchsaufbau sieht wie folgt aus. Testperson und Hörhilfe befinden sich in der Mitte des Aufbaus. Gleichmäßig um die Testperson herum verteilt befinden sich mehrere Lautsprecher, welche als unterschiedlich positionierte Geräuschquellen fungieren. Die Testperson verwendet einen, via Motion Capture erfassten Zeigestab, um die vermuteten Positionen der Geräuschquellen anzuzeigen. Die Durchführung des Versuchs, also das Ansteuern der Lautsprecher und das Auslesen der Position des Zeigestabs, geschieht mit Hilfe eines in C++ geschriebenen Programms. Dieses läuft verteilt auf mehreren Raspberry Pis sowie einem zentralen Rechner. Unter Verwendung des eben gezeigten Versuchsaufbaus wurde zudem ein erstes Pilotexperiment mit einer kleinen Zahl an Probanden durchgeführt, dessen Ergebnisse Indizien zugunsten der Effektivität der Hörhilfe liefern. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to be here. Just to start out, the video was in German, but you can ask questions in English as well. That's totally fine.
Okay, will do. So I have a question about the device first. Why is the information delayed in this abstract way, and how did people relate to that?
Yes, this device is only a prototype. The finished version is supposed to deliver its information on another way. For example, on the display of a smartwatch that the user can wear on their wrist. That is why we use this digital letter clock thingy. On the other hand, multiple other versions of this can be something that attaches to your belt and uses vibrations to convey information. And details on that can be found in the paper of the prototype itself.
So what are the next steps for the project, the questions that kind of developed from your first experiment?
Well, first of all, this setup is at the moment merely a setup that can be used in future experiments. And the data we have gathered so far only points us to one direction. So we would certainly like to do further experiments as soon as the situation allows for it. The pandemic kind of crossed our plans there, but that is nothing new. So we would like to take part in more experiments and gather more data and refine the prototype as well as the setup.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. As there are currently no questions on YouTube yet, in the interest of time, I'd like to move on, but I'm pretty sure there will be more coming up.
All right. So if you have any questions, I can answer them in the chat. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have an invited paper that has been presented first at CHI this year from Mark Colley from Ulm University, who will tell us about his work towards inclusive external communication of autonomous vehicles.
Hi everybody, I am Mark Colley from Ulm University. Thank you for watching my presentation regarding our paper Towards Inclusive External Communication of Autonomous Vehicles for Pedestrians with Vision Impairments. According to the World Health Organization, there are currently about 1.3 billion people with some 217 million people with moderate to severe vision impairment, and 36 million people are blind. In demanding traffic situations, people today rely on eye contact and gestures. Autonomous vehicles might have to substitute this communication. Autonomous vehicles could drive with a human passenger distracted, sleeping, or even without a human present. Recent research projects aim to overcome the possible challenges that arise from a missing passenger. To substitute or to even improve the missing communication possibilities, various messages and technologies such as LED strips, displays, projections, and even simulated eyes have been proposed and evaluated. Some of them are shown on this slide. You can already see a variety of visual stimuli, but are these sufficient for people with visual impairments? To answer this question, we first screened Science Direct, Google Scholar, as well as ResearchGate for work on external communication of autonomous vehicles, and grouped them by the used modality. This was done until August 2019. 33 publications were found. We classified previous work on such communication concepts via the employed modality. All concepts include a visual cue, and most work focused only on visual cues. Only 9 or 27% include an auditory cue. To gain further insights into the proposed concepts and to define requirements for potential improvements, we held a workshop in Munich with 6 experts on accessibility, 5 being visually impaired themselves and 1 being a wheelchair user. The workshop was split into 2 parts: evaluation of the proposed concepts and a discussion on challenges of current mobility and how external communication of autonomous vehicles could aid. A novel concept, the omniscient narrator, was proposed. In fully automated traffic, vehicles can communicate with each other via vehicle-to-X technology. This can be used to determine the perfect timing for the vehicles to stop, based on the presence of pedestrians. Only the nearest vehicle could communicate via the auditory channel with the pedestrian, therefore acting as an omniscient narrator. This would avoid noise pollution. Current concepts implicitly assume that all relevant autonomous vehicles will communicate with the pedestrian. In mixed traffic with a manually driven approaching vehicle on the other lane, an autonomous vehicle would only communicate its own intention, for example, "I'm stopping." The manually driven vehicle is displayed in purple on this slide. This varying message also indicates to the person with a vision impairment that extra caution is necessary. We evaluated this and other concepts in a VR study. we found that explicit communication is highly rated for people with visual impairments as well as for seeing participants. The omniscient narrator was not the preferred concept. Each vehicle should communicate. A principle in accessible design is to always address two senses. Our work shows the need to include people with impairments at an early stage of the development of novel interaction concepts to truly increase accessibility and inclusiveness through advanced technology. Thank you for watching my talk. Feel free to contact me in case there are any questions.
Thank you so much for this interesting idea. While we're waiting for questions coming in, I would like to ask, do you think sighted people could benefit from this type of interaction as well?
Yeah, so actually we included 25 seeing participants in our study, and they also agreed that an auditory communication could be beneficial. Still, of course, with a lot of vehicles and a lot of traffic, there could also be too much noise, and we of course don't want to have that all the time. So one of the participants with a visual impairment actually suggested that we could only use auditory communication when, for example, the badge that many people with vision impairments have is detected by the autonomous vehicle. But we still believe that also auditory communication can function as a trigger for people, to, for example, look up from their smartphone and therefore act as a help for, as we call it, smombies, smartphone zombies.
Absolutely. I think that leads elegantly to my second question. Do you see any problems with talking cars?
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of problems, probably. So noise pollution is obviously the first problem that we have here. I think we can omit some of the problems here by using beamforming speakers, so to directly target a group of people or one person. But of course, scalability is a big problem in this field of eHMIs. Most work until now is done using scenarios that include one vehicle and one pedestrian, for example, and having multiple vehicles or multiple persons, multiple people on the sidewalk is a big problem and has to be addressed in the future. But that's actually why we propose this omniscient narrator concept, to reduce all this noise by only having one vehicle communicate with the people.
And what made you choose a narrator or a voice over some kind of signal or some kind of abstract signal, for example?
So we found that in the first workshop with the 6 experts on accessibility. These experts are in several projects and are involved in a lot of accessibility projects in the whole of Germany. And we showed them several concepts from related work. And for example, we also included other signals that are actually already used, for example, by traffic signaling. But they told us that ambiguity is the biggest problem, and just using text is least ambiguous, and that's why we actually used text here.
Thank you so much. That seems quite clear. Again, we don't have any questions yet from the YouTube chat, so I'd advise you to check that after as people are catching up. Thank you again for presenting your interesting work.
Thank you for having me today.
And what are the next steps?
Yeah, so we want to address more impairments with this research. We believe that autonomous vehicles has have great potential to benefit not only people that can see and that can use these autonomous vehicles to do more work during the journey, but we believe that this is a potentially game-changing technology that could benefit people with impairments that already sometimes have problems in traffic scenarios today. And we believe that this should be a main focus actually of autonomous vehicle technology, and we want to focus further on that.
A lot of future work there, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As a next short paper, Moritz Wischer-Zielke from the Katholische Universität Eichstätt-Ingolstadt will tell us about age differences.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Moritz Wischer-Zielke from the Catholic University of Eichstätt-Ingolstadt, and today I have the honor of presenting the results of an online questionnaire study in the context of automated driving, which I conducted with Mr. Weigel, Mr. Steinhauser, and Mr. Ringer. Automated vehicles have to be prepared for inevitable crashes. This introduces new ethical challenges because engineers need to address dilemma situations. Dilemma situations, a decision between several harmful outcomes has to be taken. Therefore, programmers have considered specific algorithms to serve the purpose of crash control. Our study assessed people's acceptance of such crash control algorithms in a self-sacrifice scenario. Our aim in doing so was to relate people's acceptance of these algorithms to their age. Hence, we used 3 comparable age groups: young, between 18 to 44, middle, 45 to 64, and old, above 65 years. These are the vignettes that we used in the questionnaire. Participants imagined a situation in which an AV had to take a decision between either A, proceeding to drive towards the avatars on the lane, implying an egoistic decision with harm to others, or B, swerving onto a blocked lane, implying an altruistic decision with harm to self. In addition to the imagined algorithm, we also varied the number of avatars between 1, 2, and 6 to account for the group size of potential lives saved. When confronted with the vignettes, participants rated their acceptance on a slider scale from 0 to 10. In figures 3 to 5, you can see the medians of participants' acceptance scores. As you can see, participants displayed a specific age-dependent pattern in which both younger and older participants rated their acceptance for egoistic algorithms higher and for altruistic algorithms lower when compared to middle-aged participants. These differences proved to be dependent on the number of avatars used in the scenario. Differences between age groups were significant for age groups 1 and 2, but not 6 avatars. This implies an increase in acceptance for altruistic algorithms with higher numbers of lives at stake. Why do middle-aged people appreciate altruistic algorithms more and egoistic algorithms less? That is the open question of our study. It could be due to specific factors in moral reasoning related to aspects such as parenthood. Maybe future research can tell. With our study, we hope to add to the current ethical debate, which is necessary to effect a carefully considered legal situation and fair use of this new technology. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. While we're waiting for comments on YouTube, my first question would be, why did you choose age groups and why these specifically?
On the one hand, when I was doing my review of the literature, I just found that in this very new field of automated driving, there was just a lack of this sort of group in particular. So the representation and the sort of examples that other peoples were drawing was just not very representative of the overall, well, let's say, demographic composition of the population in Germany. So that was an issue in particular that I wanted to address. And also during conducting the study, I also found that I received a lot of very, very positive feedback and lots of interesting questions also from elderly people in particular. So it was very interesting, yeah, working with them.
Thank you. And what influenced your ideas to come up with this scenario or these scenarios, basically?
The scenarios are something that I was interested in a couple of things, and I used this self-sacrifice scenario because it just forced sort of people, I mean, to take a decision in which it was very obvious whether there was some sort of a utilitarian decision, this utilitarian decision was even more let's say yeah, I was just sorry, I'm just hanging off on myself. The thing I wanted to talk about is that I just found the literature a lot of research already on this sort of deontologic versus utilitarian decisions, and the self-sacrifice scenario just gave it another sort of take, you could say. So here we have this idea of the egoistic versus altruistic algorithm, and I think that was something that was still missing, especially in this take with the elderly people. Yeah.
I think building on that, we have a question from Julian who asks, in a collision like on these graphics, is the survival chance for a driver inside a car hitting a tree much higher than for pedestrians being hit by a car? And did that influence the results you got?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was actually something that is obviously a critical point in the study, but we didn't just show them the vignettes. We also had some sort of a textual stimulus, of course, and there were a lot of further details about the scenario and the way that these chances would work out in that scenario. And of course, this is a very abstracted sort of approach, yeah. But then again, we weren't really going for some sort of like the sort of data you would gather with the driving simulator, for example. So it wasn't really about that. It was more about deciding in this sort of moral abstracted sort of scenario.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for a very thought-provoking presentation and paper.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And then next up, we have, I think, Janine Lawrence from Chemnitz University of Technology with us to talk about dynamic indoor navigation and orientation systems for people with impairments.
Hello, everyone. We are the research group Dynamic. I am Janine and want to present to you our project today. So who are we? We are a junior research group at Chemnitz University of Technology. What are we doing? When was the last time you were in a complex building, like an airport, and you didn't know how to find a specific place there? I think that we all have been there and know how frustrating it can be to find our way around an unknown location, even if we are using a floor plan. Now, imagine having to orientate yourself in general and around obstacles while dealing with a temporary or permanent impairment, like limited movement or sight. Even more frustrating. Why is accessibility especially important for us? The creation of it is important for everyone, not only for people with special requirements, because some disabilities may only occur temporarily. It is known that a barrier-free, accessible environment is absolutely necessary for about 10% of the population, necessary for about 30 to 40%, and comfortable for all of us. There are, of course, other navigation systems. Some of them are designed for a single user group, like blind people. Some are closed source solutions and therefore not usable in other buildings. Some others have no built-in user localization or are only available on specific mobile devices. So what is different in Dynamic? We will integrate different user profiles according to any special requirements so everyone can use our system. The knowledge of Dynamic as an open source project can be used for other types of buildings as well. With the app, users can navigate around inside buildings and will be located via ultra-wideband. The development in Flutter allows cross-platform usage. Technical overview. Our current use case is an app to navigate around inside the new University Library of TU Chemnitz. Here you see the main components of our project: indoor mapping, localization, routing, rendering, and navigation instructions. For the indoor mapping, we will create an open source tool that converts BIM to OSM data. Until now, floor plans and/or aerial images had to be traced manually and edited in JOSM. With our tool, you can easily generate the indoor data automatically, saves time and nerves. The localization of users will be realized with high accuracy ultra-wideband. Routing will be depending on possible impairments. Here too, we rely on automation. A skeletonization algorithm will provide walkable routes on maps. For the rendering, we integrate the library Maps for Flutter, which allows the display and usage of OSM maps, but has to be extended by us to allow indoor rendering. The render theme, as well as the navigation instructions, will be adapted to the individual user profiles. Our app design is clear and simple for an easy indoor navigation while searching for books and workspaces in the library. To support the users, there are various options, for example, avoid the stairs during navigation. There's also a help menu that allows a connection to a member of the library staff. While developing the app, we involve the users for participatory design, which is very important for us. Thank you for your attention. For further and profound information, please visit our website, check out our paper, and/or contact us via mail or Twitter.
Thank you so much. Also, the question to you, who do you think the users would be, and what are your plans of involving them in the research in future?
Yes, we have, like many people here, the same problem with Corona, that we can't do user research as well as under normal circumstances. But we have an online questionnaire to get a general idea what users need with special needs or in general, so that we first of all know what is important with screen readers for visually impaired people, for example, and then in the near future we will try to meet with some potential users and show them our prototype for the app so that we can adapt this prototype further and further, and so that we have a working and really hopefully barrier-free app at the end of our project. And which is very important to us is that we not only include one specific group of people with impairments. We have to integrate a lot of users so that everyone can use our app with walking disabilities, or just someone who was never at the new library and just has to find a book. It's important as well. So, yeah.
And then also the question I asked the previous presenter, do you think this could be beneficial to all?
Of course. We explicitly, as I explicitly said in the video, that accessibility is comfortable for all of us, not only in the normal day-to-day life, like if there's an elevator and you're, I don't know, you came with a bike to the library and you are very you are out of air, then you are happy that you don't have to walk 4 floors upstairs. And if you find the barrier-free ways around the building, it's very nice. And we never know, disabilities may occur temporarily as well, with a broken leg, or if you are having much to carry, or you are there with your child and you have to navigate around the building. And I think that for the app as well, it's very important that users can use it. Also, like older people that are not as safe with smartphones, that they are confused because there are a lot of different options, and it has to be very clear and very self-explanatory. Then everyone can benefit from the app and the navigation itself.
Thank you so much. We have some comments on YouTube that I'll direct you to, that I think you will find very, very useful. And I say thank you and move on to the last presenter of this session, which is Yannis Kiosis from Technische Universität Berlin, who will tell us about mehrschichtige Interdependenz.
Hallo, mein Name ist Johannes Kiosis vom Fachgebiet für Arbeitswissenschaft in der Technischen Universität Berlin und ich freue mich, Ihnen und euch in den nächsten wenigen Minuten stellvertretend für meine Mitautorinnen Markus Feufel und Frauke Mörike ein paar Schlüsselerkenntnisse unseres Kurzbeitrags präsentieren zu dürfen, in dem es um die Nutzung von Assistenztechnologien bei Menschen mit Sehbehinderung geht, die in der Wissensarbeit tätig sind. Hier standen insbesondere die unterschiedlichen Abhängigkeiten bzw. Interdependenzen, die hier eine Rolle spielen, im Fokus. Einleiten möchte ich mit einem Zitat eines Teilnehmers unserer ethnografischen Feldforschung. Jonas, ein Geschäftsführer eines kleinen Technologieunternehmens und selbst mit Sehbehinderung, berichtete, als ich ihn durch seinen Arbeitsalltag begleitete: Du hast ständig das Gefühl, du bist wie in einem Moor. Du weißt nicht, wann du untergehst. Und damit fasst er den Arbeitsalltag aus der Perspektive Wissensarbeitender mit Sehbehinderung auf sehr prägnante Weise zusammen, der trotz der Entwicklung und Etablierung von Anforderungen zur digitalen Barrierefreiheit immer wieder von Hindernissen und Interdependenzen geprägt ist, bei denen Informations- und Kommunikationstechnologien eine entscheidende und vielschichtige Rolle zwischen B- und Enthinderung spielen. Unser Forschungsdesign basiert auf einer ethnografischen Feldforschung mit mehreren Shadowing-Sequenzen, in denen unterschiedliche Wissensarbeitende durch den Arbeitsalltag begleitet wurden. Es standen für die 2019 durchgeführte Studie insgesamt 9 Teilnehmende zur Verfügung, die jeweils einen halben bzw. ganzen Tag durch ihren Arbeitsalltag begleitet wurden und oder mit denen ein halb standardisiertes Interview von ca. 60 Minuten Dauer geführt wurde. Exemplarisch bestehen die Studienergebnisse in unserem Kurzbeitrag aus dem Arbeitsalltag von Anna, die Lehrerin an einer Berufsschule ist. Wissensarbeitende mit Sehbehinderung begegnen immer wieder den eigenen Abhängigkeiten am Arbeitsplatz, trotz der verfügbaren Assistenztechnologie. Solche Interdependenzen beobachteten wir zum einen zwischen Assistenz- und Mainstream-Technologien, die alle Mitarbeitenden nutzen, wie zum Beispiel E-Mail oder ein ERP-System, aber auch auf einer sozial-organisationalen Ebene, also bei der Interaktion mit den Kolleginnen oder der Organisation. Um die Komplexität von soziotechnischen Arbeitssystemen erfassbar zu machen, zeigt sich das Interdependenzmodell von Bennett et al. 2018 als geeignetes Analyseinstrument. Unsere Daten zeigen allerdings, dass die Interdependenzen differenzierter betrachtet werden müssen als bei Bennett et al., die lediglich allgemein auf die Relevanz der Schnittstelle Assistenztechnologie und Umwelt hingewiesen haben. Wir schlagen vor, das Modell weiter auszudifferenzieren und Umwelt zum einen um den Faktor Mainstream-Technologie zu erweitern, weil diese in besonders vielschichtigen Zusammenhängen mit Assistenztechnologie stehen. Zum anderen legen unsere Daten nahe, Assistenztechnologien in Interdependenz zum Untersuchungsraum sozialer Kontext und Organisation zu betrachten und das Modell entsprechend zu ergänzen, womit gerade für die HCI und Arbeitsforschung eine weitere zentrale analytische Position benannt werden kann.
Vielen Dank für den Beitrag. Während wir auf Fragen warten, würde ich mal anfangen mit der Frage, wie die Participants für die Studie ausgewählt wurden und warum der Fokus auf Wissensarbeiter gesetzt wurde.
Vielleicht um auf die zweite Frage zu antworten, wir haben festgestellt, dass, ich fange vielleicht damit an, dass wir ein bisschen ausgegangen sind von der These, dass Digitalisierung in der Lage ist, den Jobmarkt generell für Menschen mit einer Sehbehinderung zu verbessern. Und haben festgestellt, dass vor allem Wissensarbeitende eben heutzutage eben sehr viel auch mit digitalen Tools arbeiten. Und die Annahme war zunächst erst einmal, dass das eigentlich ein Bereich sein könnte und kann, wo Wissensarbeitende durchaus eigentlich nicht unbedingt irgendwelchen Hindernissen begegnen sollten und wollten das letztlich eigentlich auch durch die Studie entweder bestätigen oder eben nicht bestätigt sehen. Und zu der Auswahl der Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer, es war tatsächlich für uns gar nicht so leicht, entsprechende Teilnehmende zu rekrutieren. haben uns da aber an Interessensvertretungen gewandt, zum Beispiel an den Blinden- und Sehbehindertenverein und Verband, auch vor Ort in den lokalen Verbänden und haben dort vor Ort versucht, Teilnehmende zu rekrutieren.
Vielen Dank. Auf YouTube haben wir die Frage von Katja, wie sich der Umweltbegriff in dieser Studie hier von dem von Bennett und al. Bzw. Kittig unterscheidet.
Genau, also bei Bennett et al. Wird der Bereich einfach nur Umwelt genannt und wir haben ihn eben konkret ausdifferenziert in die Bereiche sozialer Kontext auf der einen Seite und auf der anderen Seite die Mainstream-Technologie, weil wir einfach festgestellt haben, dass das zwei sehr elementare Teile dieses Umweltbereiches sind. Genau, es einfach einen Mehrwert liefern würde, die eben entsprechend auch auszudifferenzieren. Wir haben auch in dem Beitrag, wenn man ihn liest, verschiedene Beobachtungsvignetten ausgewählt, die wir auch zeigen, wo man eben zum Beispiel auch erkennen kann, wie Anna, die blinde Lehrerin, mit einem sehenden Kollegen zusammen interagiert am Computer, den Computer also co-bedient, und das eben durchaus zu Problemen führen kann. Deswegen genau war die Idee eben diese Aspekte und Komponenten eben sehr dediziert auch auszudifferenzieren.
Vielen Dank dafür. Dann auch hier die Frage, was sind die nächsten Schritte für das Projekt? Oder welche neuen Fragen ergeben sich aus dieser ersten Studie?
Vielleicht gebe ich die Frage direkt gleich an Frauke weiter.
Ja, vielen Dank. Also ich denke, in diesem Kurzbeitrag ist natürlich auch nur jetzt erstmal eine Ebene dargestellt worden. Und ich denke, was man da halt vor allem dann auch sieht, ist diese Komplexität der Abhängigkeiten. Ich glaube, das ist aus dieser Kurzstudie rausgekommen. Da folgt dann jetzt auch noch dann die Ausarbeitung von einem Originalbeitrag, bei dem es tatsächlich auch darum geht, zu sehen, dass vor allem auch in so einem organisationalen Kontext auch so Dinge mit einer Rolle spielen können, die tatsächlich auch die Nutzung dann von Assistenztechnologie behindern. Und bei uns geht es jetzt tatsächlich im nächsten Schritt dann darum, das noch genauer zu verstehen, wo genau tatsächlich dieses Zusammenspiel dann zwischen Mainstream-Technologie und eben soziale Interaktion, zum Beispiel mit Kolleginnen, aber auch so etwas ganz Banales, wie zum Beispiel, wie beantrage ich denn jetzt einfach Assistenztechnologie, wie ist das Verständnis dafür, das einfach noch ein bisschen mehr sichtbar zu machen, um einfach die Rolle von Assistenztechnologie da in ihrer Komplexität auch wirklich zu zeigen, weil das auch nach unserer Hypothese jetzt dann auch ganz wichtig ist, einfach auch für das zukünftige Design dieser Technologie.
Wunderbar. Das klingt, als wären auch da noch viele spannende Fragen offen, die HCI und weiteres weiterbringen. Vielen Dank dazu oder damit. Ich bedanke mich bei switching back to English, I thank everyone who presented in this session. We had really interesting discussions coming up, and from what I've seen in the chat, interesting connections have been made. So I'm utterly excited about that and looking forward to what comes next. With that, thank you very much, and let's keep the discussion going.